Yay, new trial. We've got the case of Brian Walshe, who has been charged and is being tried for the murder of his wife, Anna Walshe, in a case where we do not have a body. And we know that one of the elements of murder is you have to prove that somebody's dead. How do we know she's dead? How do we know that she's not sitting on a beach in Serbia? I don't even know if there are beaches in Serbia, people. Please don't write to me and tell me that they're not. You get my point. She could be alive somewhere, right? Okay, we're going to get into this case. Today I'm going to cover the opening statements, give you a little recap of what that's about, what this case is about, and we'll see you right after this intro. Welcome back to the channel. So glad to have you. So glad Thanksgiving's over and that we can talk about a new trial. Yes, we've waited for this one. Brian Walshe. This one's going to be pretty high profile because it has a lot of the same players from the investigating police department that were, including Michael Proctor, the disgraced police officer in the Karen Reed case. But this is a whole different case in and of itself. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. I didn't know a lot about it, and I kind of wanted to get sort of the jury's view of what it's about before I do the deep dive. But I'll tell you as much as I can today that we gleaned from the opening statements. By the way, courtroom packed. This is the courtroom where in Massachusetts you get the hearken the evidence, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, very old school, ended by turn your cell phones off. We get the hearken all the way to cell phones off in the same speech. Anyway, so let's, before I get into the actual case, so if you wouldn't mind leaving me a thumbs up right here, that would be awesome. And subscribe to the channel. So let's talk a little bit about why we are in a courtroom in Massachusetts with Brian Walshe and nobody. We have no idea where Anna Walshe ended up. Well, we have an idea. This is a circumstantial case. There's two kinds of evidence. Physical evidence, circumstantial evidence. Now, there is some physical evidence here, but we have no body. No. But I will tell you, statistically, most no body criminal cases go forward and they usually get convictions. So we'll just start from that premise. And let's start a dive into this case. So Brian and Anna Walshe met in 2008. She had come to this country from Serbia. They fell in love. They got married in 2015 and they had 3 boys. She allegedly had an affair in 2022. I think it may have ended. She had relocated to Washington, D.C. for her job with Tishman Speyer, a very prominent real estate firm where she was making over $300,000 a year. She had told the courts that she believed Brian, she wanted those kids in DC. She wanted the 3 kids to come to DC. He couldn't do that. He could not leave. He was on court supervision for an art fraud case. She believed he was avoiding prison by telling the court, hey, I'm their primary caregiver. I can't go to prison. I have 3 boys. So he's wearing an ankle monitor. And this ankle monitor is going to turn out to be so helpful in the investigation of Anna's disappearance, because this man went to grocery stores, Lowe's, hardware stores, dumpsters, all kinds of places that we have surveillance footage of him. Now, we haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to bring that. I'm going to bring that for you soon. I'm sure the jury's going to hear evidence of that. So, and he allegedly owed over $400,000 in restitution on the art fraud case. So there was a little bit of tussle over, who was going to get the kids. So on or about January 1st, Anna Walshe allegedly murdered his wife. She worked at this real estate firm called Tishman Speyer. Anna's coworker said that she was contacted by Brian Walshe on January 4th looking for his wife. He told her that Brian Walshe was told by Anna's boss, I think you need to call 911, because what happened as a result of this interaction is the coworker, he or she goes out to Anna's residence in DC. She can't get in, so she's talking back and forth with Brian on the phone, get me the code for the garage. Finally, they're able to get in. She's not there. So Anna's boss tells Brian, listen, you need to call and report her missing. He doesn't. It's not till Brian's boss ultimately calls the Cohasset Police Department, where Brian Walshe lives, to report that Anna Walshe is missing. And his was the first report of her missing. Why aren't you reporting your wife missing, sir? Oh, there's an explanation, and you're going to be floored when you hear it. So Brian lied to the police. He told them that that Anna had taken a flight back to DC on January 1st for a work emergency. She hadn't been there for Thanksgiving because her mom had become sick in Serbia. And she hadn't been there for Christmas because she had to work. January 1st comes and Brian Walshe tells the police she had a work emergency and she took a flight back to DC, and he hasn't heard from her since. So they were able to trace Anna's cell phone location and discovered her phone had been in the area of the Walshe, Massachusetts home, Brian Walsh's home up there, on December 2nd. Now, these two, there's lots of motive here. We know he owed $400,000 restitution, and he's fighting this legal battle, likely with his wife, where, who's going to get the kids, because it's the defense's contention that these two were just fine. I don't know that there was any legal thing going on. She had to be in DC to do her job, and she was going back and forth. According to the defense, they were in this loving relationship. Things were starting to fracture because of the distance in the relationship, but there was, at no time was it Brian's intent to kill his wife. He loved his wife. He had no reason to kill his wife. So apparently, they had a couple of whole life policies that he could have borrowed against if he had needed money. There was a life insurance policy on her of over $1 million, in which he was the beneficiary, and maybe he had that in mind. She also had, at the time of her death or disappearance, over $200,000 in her bank account. Now, I might add at this point that you need to know that from January 1st, no one ever saw this woman again. There was no activity on any of her accounts, no use of her credit cards, no friends and family ever heard from her. There's no activity on her cell phone. So you just need to start at that kind of basic level. She's not out there doing anything. She's not buying flights anywhere, buying gas, using the car. There's just no activity for Anna Walshe after she's last seen on January 1st. Now, I told you Anna had missed Thanksgiving when she flew back to Serbia to take care of her mother, and she had missed Christmas. So I think the prosecution is bringing these out to point out that he had motive. He was not happy. She wasn't there Thanksgiving, wasn't there Christmas. And then on the night of January 1st, they decide they're going to have this little party. He wants his wife there, and she's at the party. There's also a guy named Jem Mutlu, who was at the party, who was Anna's former boss at the real estate company, and he is expected to testify. But everybody kind of leaves, everybody, the ball drops, and we all say Happy New Year, and by 1:30, everybody's gone home. We're done. We're gone. So Brian Walshe goes upstairs around 1:30 to locate his wife, and she is dead in the bed. Yeah. He goes up and he finds that she is dead. And his defense attorney is saying that she suffered from a very rare medical condition, that this was a sudden, unexplained death. I can't wait to hear from the medical examiner about this. Now, by what he's trying to say is that perhaps it's one of those events like a electrical event with your heart, a sudden heart attack. It's one of those events where you don't even know it's coming, that whatever the illness is, your heart disease, whatever, until, boom, you're dead. And they'll go back and go, oh my God, look at, she had this, blah, 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 whatever. So this is why I can't wait to hear from the medical examiner what killed her. But I think we know. Just wait. There's more circumstantial evidence. In any case, so the defense is claiming he panicked and he disinterred her body. Well, they don't say that. They don't even use that term. But we know originally this guy was charged with lying to the police, the disinterment of the body, and the murder itself. He pled guilty to those other two charges, lying to the police and disinterment of the body, because he didn't want that mentioned during the trial. So the jury doesn't really know this. I don't know if they will or not. But in any case, so now all the prosecution has to do is prove the murder without a body. So where was I going with this, guys? Oh, so he pled to the other two. So now it's just a murder. So now he's trying to say, I didn't commit the murder. Yes, I lied to the police. Yes, I disinterred the body. And I think that his defense attorney actually did say that during his open. He did admit to that. Yes, my client lied to the police. Yes, my client disinterred the body. But it's because he panicked. He found her dead. He loved her. He was scared. He believed that, nobody's going to believe that he didn't kill her. So he might as well, get rid of the body. So then they bring Brian in, and it's 10 days after they initially find out she's missing, they do arrest Brian Walshe. And he had several interviews by investigating police officers, which were played to the jury today. And I will cover those for you as soon as we... Am I recording? Please tell me that I'm recording. I am recording. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So where are we? Okay, where are we? Yeah. So I will watch the surveillance footage, I will watch those interviews, and I will let you know tomorrow in a recap what went down in the interviews. I'll show you any highlights that I think you might want to hear about. So I think in this case, we're going to hear from the guy she had an affair with, the guy named William Fastel. We're going to hear that, the defense said there are no financial problems. Yes, he did these prior crimes and he was serving his sentence and he was taking care of his kids. How altruistic of him. So what else did the police find? I don't think I mentioned it. They have surveillance footage from Lowe's where he purchased, and this is on like that same time frame, January 1st through the 4th, he purchased cutting instruments and a tie-back suit. Now, a tie-back suit, that's one of those big white, like one-piece things that the crime scene people put on when they are doing, or, painters use when they're painting. So he bought one of those, along with 12 bottles of hydrogen peroxide. They searched his MacBook and found some very incriminating searches. The best way to dispose of a body, how long missing to inherit, How long missing before you can be declared dead? And many more searches. They also had surveillance footage from the Lowe's where I told you he bought the tieback suit and the peroxide. He also had 2 trips to the Home Depot where he bought scented candles, cleaning supplies, a rug, $5 5-gallon buckets that were leak-proof lids, and then he stopped at a Stop and shop and bought ammonia. For what? What'd you need all that stuff for? You like, who does that? Who chops up their wife, cleans it all up because they found her dead and you're afraid you're gonna go to jail? Is anybody gonna buy that? Anybody. There are 16 jurors because they need 12 jurors. They've got 4 alternates. Are these 16 people that gullible? I don't think so. I do not think so. So is that your best shot? Go for it. Okay, you go for it. So we've got surveillance that we're going to see from every one of these places: Lowe's, Home Depot, Stop and Shop. Also at the apartment complex where Brian lives. There's footage of a person going to a dumpster that they say looks like him. I guess it'll be up to the jury to decide that. Then he drives to his mom's home in Swampscott, Massachusetts, and goes to her apartment complex, goes through the dumpster. He's seen throwing something away in the dumpster. He's at the trash compactor. Then he goes to another dumpster near a liquor store. Thank you, an ankle monitor, because the ankle monitor, this guy was not brilliant. The ankle monitors is telling them everywhere this guy has been. So all they're doing is following him around. I'm surprised because they don't arrest him for 10 days, but I'm surprised that there was as much stuff left in these dumpsters as there was for the police to find. They found an Hermes watch, which belonged to Anna. They found a pair of hunter boots, a COVID card with Anna's name on it, and the tieback suit that I told you about, some rugs, a hammer, a hacksaw, and what was the last thing? Shears. Yeah. Also, lots and lots and lots of DNA. Anna's DNA is on some of those items. Brian's DNA is on some of those items. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, all that's physical evidence right there. But it's physical evidence of a charge that he already pled guilty to, that he disinterred her body. But is it physical evidence of a murder? I didn't do it. I just found her dead. Thought I'd do all this and bury her and take care of the housekeeping too. Yeah, very, very weird. Her DNA was found on the hacksaw, the hatchet, and the rug, of course, with brown stains to go along with it. Yeah. So, like I said, they spent the rest of the day showing police interview stuff. I'm going to watch that, get you the most relevant, recap it for you, show any of interest in tomorrow's episode. And I will see you then. Have a great day, everybody. And I'll see you in tomorrow's episode. Bye.